Alright guys, today we're starting our next unit on statistics. This is unit 15, and the title for today is going to be populations and samples. In your table of contents, write the title of today's lesson, populations and samples, and then on the next clean sheet of notebook paper, write your title, populations and samples, and then the essential question for today, how can I use a sample to make inferences about a population? Hit pause to set up your table of contents in your notes. When you're ready to move on, press play. Alright, go ahead and hit pause and copy these three definitions into your notes. You will have a vocabulary quiz for this unit. These are the first three definitions you need to know. If you'd prefer to do your vocabulary on a separate page, that's fine. You'll probably want to leave a page front and back for your definitions because there are, I think it's like 15 terms in this unit. It's more vocabulary. So you can either do this straight in your notes, or if you'd rather have a separate page for vocab, that's fine. Just leave 2 pages. So what you are copying down, I'm just going to read through the definitions as you're copying, or if you've already copied them down. First of all, what is a population? It is a complete set of items being studied. So the total population of the United States, for example, that's like everybody who lives in the United States. It's the total population. What is a sample of a population? It is a part of the population. A sample is useful when you want to find out about a population, but you do not have the resources to study every member of the population. So it is really not very realistic when we are trying to make a prediction or an inference about a population to actually go and survey every single person in the population. If the population's like the whole country, like that's just not very realistic. Or even the population of a whole city. There's so many people that live in a city, you probably wouldn't be able to survey all of them. That's why we take a sample. And then third definition, what is a subject? Each member in the sample is called a subject. So each individual person in that sample, we call that a subject. All right, hit pause if you're not done copying. Finish up copying these 3 terms. When you're ready to move on, press play. All right, so here we see kind of a visual of what a population, a sample, and a subject would look like. The population is going to be the entire group. So here we see this big red circle around all these people. This is the population. A sample of the population, you see they've taken a couple different selections here and here. Each of these would be called a sample. And then a subject is just one individual person within that sample. All right, you don't have to copy this down. Just follow along with me and decide what each of these should be. We're trying to decide, is it the sample or is it the population? All right, all of the words on a page of the book, would that be sample or would that be population? That should just be a sample. It's just on one page of the book. So this is a sample. It's not the whole book, right? B, every other word in the book, is that going to be the population of the sample? That, again, would be the sample because it's every other word. It doesn't include all the words. All right, C, all of the words in the book, that would be the population. And then one word in the book, that would be a sample. We could also say that that is a subject. That's just one individual word within the sample would be a subject. All right, next example. Again, you don't have to copy this down. Just follow along with me. You are studying the t-shirts being sold at a clothing store. Which are samples? Which are samples? Just read it and decide on your own, and then we'll say what the answers would be. All right, first, every other t-shirt in the store, would that be a sample? Yes. All the t-shirts in the store, would that be a sample? No, this is the population. Okay, all of the medium-sized t-shirts, yes, that is a sample. One t-shirt in the store, we would say that that's a sample. We'd also say that that is a subject. And then all of the striped t-shirts in the store, that is a sample. All right, next 2 definitions. Press pause and copy these down. I'm going to read them to you as you're copying. what is a representative sample and what is a biased sample. In a representative sample, the number of subjects in the sample with the trait being studied is proportional to the number of members in the population with that trait. We want it to represent the entire population. So if we have, for example, let me think, if we have 50 states, but maybe, 15 of them touch the ocean, 15 of the states, the ones on the outside, I don't know if that's the actual number, I'm just making this up. But there's a lot of states in the middle of the country that don't touch the ocean. So if I wanted to have a representative sample of people who live by the ocean versus don't live by the ocean, I would want to have it kind of proportional. So I might want to only have 10 to 15 people for every 50 people in my sample that say they live in a state by the ocean. Okay, that's kind of what that means. What is a biased sample? It is when the number of subjects in the sample with the trait being studied is not proportional to the number of members in the population with that trait. So if I wanted a biased sample, then I could pick a sample of 50 people who all do live by the ocean. When I ask them, do you live by the ocean? All of them would say yes, but is that really representative of the whole United States? No. All right, next definition. What is a bias? Copy this into your notes. A bias is a tendency toward a particular perspective that is different from the overall perspective of the population. So here's our question. Do you like sushi? We have the smiley faces like it. We have the frowny faces don't look like it. So looking at this sample over here, how many like it and how many don't? We only have one that likes it, 4 of them don't. So this sample is biased toward no because the majority of them don't like it. But when we're looking at the whole population, we see that there's more smiley faces than that. This sample, they have 4 smiley faces, 1 frowny face, so we're saying 80% like it. Is that representative of the population? No, that's not. It looks like we've got about half and half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 smiley faces and 7 frowny faces. So it should be about half and half if we want to make it a representative sample. Neither of these samples would be representative. These are biased. All right, look at this example. You are studying the people in the United States. You want to know who spends at least 2 months every year within 200 miles of the ocean. Man, I kind of already talked about something like this, but here we go again. Which is the description for your population? We're looking at these options over here. So go ahead and look through the ones. Which would be the description for the population? It would be the bottom. Everyone in the United States, this is our population. Okay. Now, part B, describe each sample as having a bias or not having a bias and justify your reasoning. Okay. So if I want a representative sample, that means that it should not have a bias. So if I interview everyone who lives in Colorado, Iowa, and Kansas, which is this, and this, what are they going to say? Spending at least 2 months of every year within 200 miles of the ocean. They are going to say, probably the large majority are going to say, no. So is this biased? Yes, this is biased towards no. Because they only are interviewing people who live in the middle of the country. So biased towards no. All right, what if we interviewed everyone who lives in Florida, Hawaii, and Maine? Is Maine close to the ocean? Yes. Is Florida close to the ocean? Yes. Is Hawaii close to the ocean? Yes. So is this a biased sample? Yeah, this one is biased towards yes. Probably the large majority of the people that live in those 3 states would say, yeah, I spend 2 months of the year at least near the ocean. And then last, 100 people from each state. So from every one of the 50 states, I would interview 100 people. Is that a biased sample or is that going to be a representative sample? That is going to be a representative sample. So this is the one that I want to do. This is my representative sample. Because that would truly give me a picture, kind of a taste from each of the states. Do you spend 2 months by the ocean or not? That's a representative sample. All right, next example. You are studying the people in the United States. you want to know who goes sledding each year. Which samples are likely to contain a bias? I want you to hit pause and answer this one on your own. Which of those samples are likely to contain a bias? Hit play when you're ready to check your answer. Alright, so we know, what do we need to be able to go sledding? We need snow. So we want to pick the states that would have snow or that for sure would not have snow if we're looking for ones that would have a bias. So when we say everyone in Colorado, Utah, and Vermont, do those get snow? All of those get snow. So that would be biased towards yes, because those guys probably sled a whole lot. Okay, because they all get lots of snow. All right, what if we did 200 people from each state? Would that be a biased sample? No, this is good. We like this one. Okay, so this one is biased. 1, 2 is not biased. It's representative. Number 3, Florida, Louisiana, and Texas. You know, they might get snow maybe once, but those states in particular don't get very much snow. So we're going to say biased towards no. Okay, last one. Everyone who owns a sled. Well, if you own a sled, do you probably live somewhere where you're going to go sledding? Yeah. If I lived in Hawaii, I don't know that I would bring my sled with me. So I would say that this is biased towards yes. You don't own a sled. Generally, I mean, I know that there's like probably the random person who has a sled and doesn't ever use it, but usually if you own a sled, you live somewhere where sledding is a possibility. Okay, 2 more definitions. Hit pause, copy this down, and then hit play when you're ready to move on. What is a valid inference and what is an invalid inference? A valid inference is true. We know valid means true. It's true about the population. Valid inferences can be made when they are based on data from a representative sample. So we have to be taking a representative sample, not a biased sample, to do a valid inference. An invalid inference is false about the population or does not follow from data. A biased sample can lead to invalid inference. So we don't want to use a biased sample to make inferences because they will probably be invalid or false. Okay?